DIY.
Although he wasn't the first one to put out a $100 album, for the time period that he did it, it was something that was a bit of a risk. It wasn't a given that this is going to be a successful campaign. Matter of fact, there's a lot of pushback that a lot of people tend to forget about.
Nipsey released his 8th official mixtape, Crenshaw. Crenshaw was not only received well for its quality among Nipsey Hussle fans, but also for Nipsey Hussle's decision on how to actually distribute the mixtape. The thing is, Crenshaw was free like the majority of the mixtapes back in the day, and anyone could listen to it digitally. However, if you wanted to listen to Nipsey's newest material as soon as possible, you had to buy a special edition of a mixtape that had a limited edition of hard copies, 1,000 to be exact.
Anybody who's familiar with marketing, the necessity of it being 1,000 units only will push what they call scarcity marketing. Immediately, people start to feel like there's an urgency to want to invest into this, but the combination of, one, it being $100 and there only being 1,000 units raised a whole lot of eyebrows, some in interest and some in confusion.
That cost a whopping $100 per unit. The fans were buzzing, blogs were picking it up, critics and experts doubted such a decision from the get-go, and seemingly only Nipsey Hussle believed in this project the entire time. Nipsey had multiple expansions for that business decision, one of which was his desire to target the most devoted part of his fan base. The reason I chose to charge $100 each copy and only start with 1,000 units is because I tailor making my music for those who are listening.
I heard LaRussell. He said something where someone was like, why don't you just set a price and then have people meet you at whatever price that you set? And he was like, who am I to determine what that value of that product or that music is for someone who said, your music changed my life? Your music motivated me through the passing of someone personal to me. It's not that these folks are being predatory upon those who are the most dedicated, but it's giving the opportunity for them to show in the way that they can how appreciative they are for the art form that you present. When I heard that, it started to really dawn on me how much Nipsey was ahead of his time.
The second reason was Nipsey's desire to see how far he had made it and how much his music was worth to rap fans.
Do you know how scared a lot of artists would be at this juncture of their career making a move like this and it not becoming successful? For some people, they'll view it as like life or death for their career. So to take a chance like this at a time like this, you just have to have like the ultimate confidence in your fan base and the ultimate confidence in your craft.
As an artist, a lot of times you're asked to sacrifice the integrity of your art for commercial interests because you want to try and sell as much as possible. By marking the price up, expect to sell a lot fewer units, but we knew we were selling to people who were already super engaged. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel or think too much about what we did. We just had to make sure not to stray from the course that we already were on.
And I'm telling you, once again, this was at a time where streaming was the primary focus. And for me, it felt like this was more of a statement of we ultimately need to be in control of how our art is priced. Because if we leave it up to whoever was a part of that iTunes circle, that Steve Jobs circle that said, I think that the value of a download of an MP3, I think it's 99 cents or $1.29. This was an opportunity to say, no, hold on. Is his music worth that to me?
And the third reason was by far the most ambitious one. To challenge, change, and shape the music industry in the way business was done by an independent rapper. And Crenshaw solidified his status as a visionary that saw and understood the rules of the game coming into the digital era. Whether we accept it or not, buying music is a choice, not a requisite. When I think of the psychology behind what makes me purchase an artist's album, it's always a form of reciprocation, almost like a token of appreciation after I experience the product. The reason I chose to charge $100 each copy and only start with 1,000 units is because I tailor making my music for those who are listening. It's not about stepping outside of what I'm known for in hopes of new discovery. What that means, less is fans that are better served. I'm more or less focused on fully serving the ones that have connected already.
When you think about the reasons that you tap into buying a project or buying an album, when that was the only option that we had as music listeners, you really have to believe in what an artist has presented. And this is something that forced listeners to relive that experience in real time, to have a physical relationship in a digital era.
In a way, we can say that Nipsey was one of the first artists to use a patron-esque model to distribute his material. For $100, fans who bought the limited physical edition of Crenshaw not only got a hip-hop album to add to their collection, but they also got Nipsey's autograph, a ticket to one of his upcoming live shows, and a chance to get one of two special gifts from the artist.
Now think about that. You not only get the music, but you're also getting an autograph. You're also getting a concert ticket. If you're somebody that is a diehard fan of an artist, you almost feel like you're getting away with something when you get this package for $100.
One of the random fans got to personally talk to Nipsey Hussle on the phone and received an additional signed photograph in the mail. And another fan could meet Nipsey at the recording studio while he was working on his first album.
You'll never forget that. If I got to sit in a studio session with Andre 3000 when he was recording The Love Below, that's my favorite rapper of all time. My whole channel would be called The Love Below. I would still be talking about it every single day. This reminds me of that one time I was in a studio session with Andre 3000 and he did Prototype. Like, I would be talking about that today.
Each of the hard copies was given a special number to prove its uniqueness and limited supply. Nipsey also never claimed Crenshaw to be a musical masterpiece before its release. And in his eyes, the mixtape's quality wasn't the sole purpose of putting the $100 price tag on it. It isn't the price of the plastic case and polyurethane disc. It's the price of revolution. The price.
Shoo! It's not the price of a CDR. Anybody who's ever been a part of that physical music era, you know that to get a CDR from Staples, to get a spindle was not that expensive. Even to get the printing paper that you would put the sticker over the CD. These are for folks who were like really DIYing. It wasn't a whole lot. The most expensive thing in the process was probably the CD burner and the ink that you had to replace in your inkjet color printer. You're not paying for that. And I don't think anybody who is willing to pay that looks at it as just, I'm not paying that for some music. It's not that. It's the opportunity to be a part of history. It's the opportunity to get the full bundle in the experience.
The price of rebellion against an industry that has tricked us all into making products that have no soul for fear of not being heard if we don't.
I don't go deep down a conspiracy theory bag, but one thing I feel very strongly about, there were people who did not want a voice like this to be magnified, because if more artists thought like him, at that point in time, a lot more artists would have been independent because they know that they can get the most income out of the work that they invest into what they're doing. Also, the most control creatively over the art that they fell in love with that made them want to go on this journey to begin with.
Despite all the skepticism, Crenshaw's limited $100 edition was sold in less than a day in a local pop-up store in LA.
1,000 copies for $100? Less than a day.
People gathered at the store's doors and waited till midnight to buy a special copy of the mixtape. It was full of regular fans who truly appreciated Nipsey's music.
I'm glad he said that. Hello, Yasin. Shout out to you. If you see an artist that you know obviously has some kind of major label backing do this, doesn't it feel too produced to be enjoyed? This, I think, made a lot of people who looked at Nipsey as quote unquote just a West Coast artist. Some people will put him in a category of just a gangster rapper. But doing something like this said, oh, you thought I just had fans. No. Even artists who probably were more popular at the time could not have pulled off something like this.
While trolls on Twitter are far from being an indicator of any real criticism, they still contributed to spreading negativity, or fair criticism in their eyes, about Nipsey's name by making memes and clowning Nipsey Hussle's overconfident or cash grab opportunity.
When this happened, when this whole thing went down, I got immediately activated as an artist. We were already independent. I was part of an independent label called Black Cloud Music, and we were already trying to think of like things that we can do to push the envelope. Things that we can do to really show people the pride that they should have in being independent. It was unfortunate because that was probably the tail end of when artists were like very desperately still wanting to get signed. Of the people that he's talking about that criticized Nipsey, I was blown away by how many artists were going against it. Even if you don't care for this brother's music, understand the statement has a ripple effect that could affect your bottom line as an artist. I got the call, and you know what I did with this? I made a $100 box. So I put posters in there that I printed at Staples. I put socks in there. I put a DVD with all my music videos. I printed it out. I never forget, there was a magazine called Respect Magazine. They made a story, a blog post about me doing this and how much it was inspired by Nip, and then Nip retweeted it. Made my damn year. It wasn't so much about me trying to piggyback or steal the idea. It was like, I see what you were trying to show us as artists, and unfortunately a lot of my peers are not fucking waking up.
Compton's KJLH FM radio station, in Nipsey's words, did an on-air mocking of him and were making jokes about the fact that he dared to sell the CD for $100. Nipsey responded to criticism on his Twitter page, stating, if you don't support it, at least don't bash it.
And as much as he could have like talked his shit, especially in the public eye, he still handled that like a grown man. You don't have to support it, but what is the necessity of bashing it?
A longtime Nipsey critic and article writer for the magazine Complex, Shipley, who previously called Nipsey an underachiever in the infamous article before, also couldn't miss the opportunity to ridicule him, saying, Nipsey Hussle hasn't had an idea this stupid since he came up with his rapper name.
Just imagine somebody in their life who has never built something, talking about the writer who's never built anything, criticizing someone else for underachieving in what they built. But imagine somebody who never even tried, telling people who have a skill set, put forth the energy and time into their craft, into their business to achieve something, whether or not you feel like it should be larger than what it is. Imagine the audacity.
Nipsey didn't respond, blocking him without giving him the props. Although in reality, Nipsey had way more supporters in high places in comparison to the vocal but rather small-time minority. None other than JayZ showed respect to Nipsey's business hustle, buying not 1, but 100 of Crenshaw's limited edition copies.
Say what you want about JayZ. JayZ making his move so huge. When somebody has as much influence as a JayZ, sees what's going on there, sees what's being established and says, I'm gonna do you one better.
Nipsey got a call from Roc Nation's representative with a message that went along the lines of, JayZ just sent you 10 bands for 100 CDs. Nipsey stayed collected and sent Hove a package with 100 hard copies of his latest project.
Come on now.
Later, he shared a photo of a historic bank receipt on his page, writing, they be like, who gonna spend $100 for a CD? I'll be like, S. Carter Enterprises.
The ultimate flex. Y'all can say whatever you want to say, but you know that guy, Sean Carter, aka JayZ, the biggest rapper that y'all know? Yeah, he saw the value in not just the music, but the idea. And you know what he did? He cut a check for $10,000. I can't hear you.
When Jay tapped into the wave, everybody became a believer.
Some people are waiting for somebody that they highly respect to co-sign what you're doing for them to be a believer in what you're doing.
Hove saw a fellow visionary and respected Nipsey's ambition, hustle, and strive to make the industry better. It's time we acknowledge what we all know, that music is free. We shouldn't force people to buy it, but we should do is create different methods to monetize the connection. Being a bookworm, as Nipsey called himself, he got the idea from the book Contagious.
Get that book.
In one of the chapters, Nipsey read about Barclay Prime, a Philadelphia restaurant that suddenly began to charge $100 for cheesesteak sandwiches that were considered ordinary street food. However, it wasn't just a sandwich, as Nipsey recalled. It came with truffles and it came with a glass of champagne. It was a real elegant presentation. But they got all types of backlash because they charge $100 for a product that costs $3 or $4 in Philly.
Stop listening to people. When you feel that visionary blood in you boiling, when you feel an idea that is on your heart, even if you don't succeed at it, stop listening to these people, especially these people who have never done shit. Stop listening to people afraid to take risks in their own arenas. Tell you what risk you should take in your arenas.
But after a while, it became like a status symbol. When you want to take a girl on a nice date, you take her to Barclay Prime and get a $100 cheesesteak. Oprah came through and got one. Jay Leno got one. And it became a really big marketing tool for the restaurant and a magnet to bring people in. So I just thought about hip hop, and I'm just like, our price point was come up by somebody. We never came up with a business model. The success of Crenshaw was the outcome of a well-planned, slowly unfolding strategy, rather than a one-and-done type of wonder. It was the result of hard work and forward thinking by Nipsey. CD sales are falling off the cliff, but the artist is thriving. But more people consume our music and people are going to shows again because you can't bootleg that. You can't download the show.
He also sold, along with those CDs, experiences that you can't download. That's, to me, like, that's so forward thinking.
A couple of years later, Nipsey repeated the success of the Crenshaw tested model with his Mailbox Money project, this time charging $1,000. Nowadays, the original unsealed limited edition copy of Crenshaw sits at $255 for a CD on various reselling websites.
The same Nipsey Hussle album that they said he was out of his mind for trying to do. There are people now reselling the project. Sold date in 2020 during a pandemic, somebody paid $255. Ultimately, you gotta be the one bold enough and audacious enough to just try it. But for an independent artist to take that kind of a chance, especially one that was just coming off of the criticism of not only outlets, but the criticism of supposed fans of hip hop culture, to do that at that time and to take that chance on himself is so important. And I feel like ultimately the lesson is that you don't know until you try. And if you look around for anybody else to determine or help you figure out what your value is, you'll always be undervaluing yourself. DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Stop being greedy. Peace.